So welcome back. All right, so here's the story. Many years ago, I've written a book called The Soul's Coach, 7 Paths to Healing Your Relationship. And the reason why is because many years ago, many years ago, I went through some very difficult situations around abandonment, which really wreaked havoc on my relationships. And I'm not going to go into all that right now, but it was pretty serious. It was my life when I was younger wasn't so fantastic. And that's pretty much what I learned. I took into my adult beliefs and they played out and wasn't pretty. And because of all this, I thought my life was going great. I didn't have any more lessons to learn. I mean, I knew I had lessons to learn, but I pretty much thought the big ones were over and my life was going to be smooth sailing. Well, that's a joke. One day I was minding my own business and all of a sudden I had these horrible stabbing pains in my head. And what really happened was I woke up in the morning and my husband came into the house and he was hysterical because our cat had been hit by a car. And my husband has never had children. So this cat, Miko, who was adorable, was like his child. And believe me, I'm an animal lover. I'm obsessed with animals. But when after you have a child, sometimes you realize your animals are still important to you. They're a part of your family. But, you know, you have your child. But when you don't have a child, that animal is your child. I mean, it's just different. It's just hard to explain. I'm sure some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. So he came in with Miko and he was devastated. And my husband had had a stroke a year before that. And I jumped out of bed. I went downstairs and I was so concerned about my husband having another stroke. I was really upset about my cat. I've never seen my beloved dead, my cat. I've never experienced this. And I was concerned. So I went downstairs and I felt like, you know, both arms were being tugged. I was trying to make sure my husband would be okay. I was in shock. My cat was gone. And all of a sudden I bent down and I had these stabbing pains in my head. So, and they were so bad. I mean, it was debilitating that I went and sat down at our dining room table. And we have a 17-foot dining room table. We live in a loft. And I sat at this dining table and my head was just exploding. I couldn't understand what was happening. And then I started feeling really nauseous. So I ran to the bathroom and I started throwing up. And I was so sick that I didn't understand what was happening to me. Thank God I had called my daughter from school saying, Miko is gone, please come home, because Miko is really a part of our family. And we had a dog named Happy who unfortunately is no longer with us, but you know, our animals were part of our family. So she came racing home and she knew that how Michael felt about his cat and that this was devastating. And he had just had a stroke, so we were scared. So here I am in the bathroom laying down and she, thank goodness, is on her way home. Well, I remember my husband coming into the bathroom and I couldn't even talk. I said, call 911. And he assumed I was having a panic attack. So he really didn't take it seriously because why would anyone think that? And I didn't explain to him about my head and what was going on because I was that sick. I was just whispering, call 911. And I can guarantee you, if I ever said that to him again, the first thing he would do is call 911. So I'm eventually laying on the floor, half out of it, in a pool of sweat. And my daughter comes home. I can hear her coming home. And the first thing she does is she goes and sees my husband to make sure he's okay. And she's upset, you know, and she has a lot of empathy for my husband. And then she comes into the bathroom and I see her face drop. And she's trying to talk to me, but I can't really talk. So she says, Mommy, should I call 911? And I could barely whisper yes. So she calls 911. And the next thing I know, the paramedics are here. Very, very nice people. And the first thing he says to my daughter is she always this color? And I wasn't. I was just pale as a ghost, apparently. So they pick me up and, you know, they take me to the hospital. And then the fun begins. We go to the hospital and my daughter's with me because my husband had to take care of the cat because we can't leave a deceased animal sitting in our house. And my daughter had called my father from Irvine. He lived in Irvine, California. Unfortunately, he died 5 months ago of cancer. That'll be a wonderful story one day to tell you. I've learned a lot from my father. Talk about, he's probably the strongest person I've ever met in my life. I learned a lot from his death. She called my mom, who's in Palm Springs, who came racing down. And of course, my stepmother. And my very close best friend, Paula. And Mary, who's like a sister to me. I have two very, very close friends. I'm very fortunate. And everyone came racing down. So here I am in the hospital, and all I really remember is saying, sweetheart, I'm going to give you something to relax you. And I don't really remember the rest, but I woke up, and this doctor is in front of me, this brain surgeon, who is the most incredible, compassionate, kind man. And he was really incredible. Like, he really cared what was going on. And I just remember that he said, I have good news and bad news. What do you want to hear first? So I said, I don't know. So I think that's what I said. And he said, well, you don't have a brain tumor. And I'm just thinking, well, wait a minute. What do you mean about my brain anyways? What's going on with my brain? But again, I was so sick, I couldn't really articulate anything. And when you're that sick, you almost don't care. And then he said, but you have, and I can't remember exactly what he said because I was so out of it. But I think what I was told he said is that I need surgery. I remember that he said I need surgery. But from what I heard, I was told that it was kind of like a brain aneurysm, but it wasn't. So I'm laying there, minding my own business. And I remember seeing my daughter. I remember seeing my daughter. I don't remember anybody else. But I know that my husband was there and Paula was there at the time. My mom may have been. I don't remember. Here's what's really interesting. When I was laying on this table, I saw this white light that I've seen before in my life. It's like a filtered yellowy light, and like things are coming down. And I remember hearing, don't worry, your daughter will be okay. Because as a mother, I'm sure a lot of parents feel the same way. Your greatest fear, my greatest fear, is that I'm not here for my child. And it doesn't mean that I don't trust that if God forbid this were to happen, that she wouldn't be okay, because I have a lot of faith in my daughter. But I am my daughter's parent, her mother, and I am here. I've always been her mother, and I'm going to take care of her. Oh, and I'm sorry to leave out. My daughter also called my ex-husband, Jan, who I'm extremely very close to, and he was at the hospital. So that happened. And I wake up, and here I am in intensive care. And I just remembered saying my head was really, really hurting. And they gave me more morphine. And they weren't supposed to, but I guess this lovely nurse said, go ahead and give it to her. So what happened, and I'm not going to go into the whole scientific thing because I don't even really understand all of it myself, and I'm not really interested in it. But what happened is I had an acute malformation in the cerebellum. And the problem was it was very close to the brainstem, which apparently is a big problem. And they weren't really aneurysms, but they were like aneurysms. 4 different vessels bled out in my brain. And the problem was in the surgery is that there was so much blood that they couldn't find where the bleeding was coming from. So eventually, which was the first, thing they had to do, was they found where the bleeding came and they clamped it and then fixed the rest of it, cauterized the other vessels, and they stopped the bleeding. And then they had found dried blood, which I'll talk about in my next video where that came from. I'm pretty sure that's where it came from, that they had to clean up. And then they had to go and fix the cerebellum because it was tangled. That's what the doctor said, it was tangled. And they fixed it. And apparently it was a very complicated surgery. And what was really cool is the whole time they were doing it, I was sitting up. The doctor was incredible. So now I'm a little sensitive with my head. I have a titanium plate in back of my head, and I have a clip and some other stuff, and I'm a little sensitive, and I'm fine. It's never going to happen again because it wasn't an actual aneurysm. It was, I think my husband had said that the doctor said 1 out of 100,000 people have what happened to me. So when I did ask my doctor if this could happen to me again, he said, I wouldn't worry about it. No. And I've seen specialists and all these other people that have told me I'm going to be fine. I'm not 3 years later, but I'm going to be fine. And the good thing is my daughter isn't going to get it, because I guess from what I've heard, if you have a brain aneurysm, that your children can get that. So you can check my facts, but that's just what I was told by a doctor. So that's what happened to me. And I was in ICU for a while, and it was really horrible. And I remember I was in ICU, and I looked to my window, and one of the things I remember is I saw 3 faces. I saw Greta, Dennis, her husband, and Heidi, who came to visit me. And I just remember seeing the looks on their faces. They were very concerned. And I will never forget that they took the time to come see me in that hospital. I will never, never, ever forget that. They wanted to come in and see me, but I couldn't. My mother was there taking care of me. I remember my mom, my dad was there. My stepmom was there, but I don't remember. And Mary and Paula were there. And of course, my husband and my daughter. And I was just really grateful that everybody was there. And I was in and out. And I couldn't say anything, but I just want you to know how grateful I was. That is the story about the brain surgery, and I will expand on it on the next video. Thank you.